Welcome back. Feels like this was forever ago, but it was only a few weeks ago. A delegation of Texas Democratic lawmakers spent around 2 weeks escaping here to the Chicago area to avoid moving forward on a redistricting vote down in that state that heavily gerrymandered those districts in favor of Republicans. It was a power move ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. Eventually, those Democrats returned and the maps were passed and signed into law. So what did they accomplish? Our next guests say quite a lot, actually, and they wrote about it in a New York Times op-ed titled, "Why the Texas Democrat Walkout Worked." And joining us are the authors of that article, Michael Brownstein, and Chair of Philosophy at John Jay College, and Alex Madva, Professor of Philosophy at Cal Poly Pomona. Well, welcome, both of you. Thanks for joining us. I'll start with you, Michael. Well, both of you argue that the Texas Democrats did accomplish their mission despite that remap going through. Explain that for us.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. They knew when they left the state that they were very likely to lose the redistricting fight in Texas itself. The point was to bring attention to what Republicans were doing by trying to, rather than win by persuading voters, win by picking voters. And they garnered a lot of national attention that wasn't there before, and they inspired others to join the fight, which I think was really the goal. It wasn't long after that Newsom in California and Hochul in New York spoke up about efforts to fight back, and that's the sense in which they won.
And Alex, you talk about in your op-ed that big movements throughout history, and I'm not equating this with civil rights, but movements like the civil rights movement, they had to fail many times before finally succeeding. So I guess explain the parallels there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So in our forthcoming book, Somebody Should Do Something, we talk about social change, and we talk about a whole variety of different kinds of social change. And in many cases, there are groups that know that they're going to lose in the short term. And in some cases, they might lose very badly. For example, civil rights protesters knowing that they're going to be beaten, but knowing that they're going to lose loudly. And so if it's being broadcast on national television, then those short-term losses might lead to long-term gains. So we think there's lots of evidence, if you look at history, where people take a longer view, and again, shorter-term losses might lead to longer-term gains.
And it might be short-term pain, as we've seen now this sort of domino effect of states wanting to gerrymander. California you mentioned, but then other Republican-led states. Michael Brownstein, when I'd covered gerrymandering or redistricting in the past, I could almost feel the viewer's eyes glaze over. Do you think that this maybe informed the general populace on the importance of this issue?
I hope so, yeah. I think that it's a difficult topic to get people excited about, except when you frame it the right way, it becomes clear that what this really is about is your vote counting. And that's at the heart of democracy, and that's what the fight is all about. So even though the immediate short-term consequence here is a kind of arms race in gerrymandering between the states, the long-term goal is clearly got to be federal restrictions against partisan gerrymandering. And because the Republican Party has made it clear they have no interest in doing that, Democrats have to win power in order to pursue democracy reforms like federal law against gerrymandering.
And map-making, gerrymandering, again, it's been an issue for decades. Alex Madva, do you see that as the long-term future here? I mean, both parties will pay lip service to the fact that gerrymandering is bad for the country. It leads to more partisanship. It leads to less representation for voters, politicians picking their voters instead of the other way around. So do you think that that is a realistic long-term play here, where maybe one day there could be a federal law passed that's upheld by the Supreme Court?
Right. That's definitely a big question, what can pass muster with the Supreme Court. But we certainly don't have to tell your audience in Chicago or Illinois about the problems with gerrymandering. But we're operating in a context where if we want to get to a place where we are in a situation where the voters are picking the representatives rather than the representatives picking the voters, we need to put on blast. We need to signal boost all of the efforts that are being made to gerrymander. And so the hope is that by calling it out in these egregious cases, such as breaking the norm or the laws of only gerrymandering in the middle, or only gerrymandering after a census and instead gerrymandering in the middle of a cycle, that if we call more attention to that, then we can get it onto voters' maps as something that's important, as something that's a priority, as trying to preserve democracy.
And Michael Brownstein, we hear Missouri is considering remap, Indiana's considering remap. Would you anticipate that Democrats in those states should do the same thing that Texas Democrats did to keep this on the public's radar?
Unfortunately, yes. I mean, our research into the history of social movements and people fighting for democracy, even in the most repressive places in the world, shows that when people take risks to make clear what they believe in, others join the fight. And that's a good thing. The bad thing is right now that people who believe in democracy in this country are being forced into this battle, this short-term battle with gerrymandering. But the long-term goal has to be to continue to grow a critical mass of people in the country who are willing to stand up for the basic rule of law and the basic tenets of democracy. So I certainly hope so, even though it's a fight that none of us wanted.
And obviously, you mentioned Chicago. Gerrymandering has been an issue in map making here in Illinois and in Chicago for many, many years. And there are groups trying to change that to make it a more independent process. Michael Brownstein, Alex Madva, best of luck on the book. We'll have to talk to you then. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having
us on.
All right, you got it. And that is our show for this Wednesday night. Now you can listen to the show anywhere you stream podcasts. New episodes drop Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. We are back tomorrow and next Monday. As always, keep up with all the news you need to know at fox32chicago.com and the Fox Local app. Have a great night.